Tell me in the comments, have you ever looked at someone you love and suddenly realized you never really knew them at all? For 68 years, I had believed that my home was the one place in this world where no one could touch me. Not illness, not loneliness, not time. My home. The little colonial on Birchwood Lane in Greensboro, North Carolina, that my late husband Gerald and I bought in 1989 for $94,000. The house where I raised 2 children, buried a husband, and grew old enough to stop caring what the neighbors thought of my garden. That house was not just property. It was the only version of myself I had left. I want you to understand something before I go any further. I am not a naive woman. I spent 31 years as an administrative director for a hospital system. I managed budgets, personnel disputes, vendor contracts. I know how people behave when there is money involved. I know what it looks like when someone smiles at you and means something else entirely. I have seen it. And still, I almost didn't see it happening to me. My daughter's name is Diane. She is 43 years old, and she is my youngest child. My son Nathan lives out in Phoenix with his family. We talk every Sunday, always have. But Diane is local. She lives about 20 minutes from me, over in Summerfield, and after Gerald passed 4 years ago, she started coming by more. At first, it was sweet. She would bring groceries, sit with me at the kitchen table, ask about my old friends from the hospital. She has a husband, his name is Ray, and they have 2 children. My grandson Oliver is 12, and my granddaughter Penny is 9. Oliver is the quiet one. He always has been. Even as a toddler, he would sit at the edge of the room and just watch, big brown eyes taking in everything. Gerald used to say that boy sees more than the rest of us put together. Gerald was right. But I am getting ahead of myself. It started, as these things often do, so gently that I could not have named it as a beginning. It was a Tuesday afternoon, about 18 months ago. Diane had come over for lunch. I had made chicken salad, the way she likes it, with the grapes and the pecans, and after we ate, she pushed her plate aside and folded her hands on the table. That gesture. I have thought about that gesture so many times since. The deliberateness of it. She said, "Mom, can I ask you something and you won't get upset?" I told her of course she could. She said, "I've noticed you've seemed a little scattered lately. Have you been having trouble keeping track of things, like appointments or where you put things?" I looked at her. I said, "Diane, I put my keys on the hook by the door every single day. Same hook for 30 years. She laughed, said she was just checking. Said Nathan had mentioned something similar on a call, and they both just wanted to make sure I was doing okay. I let it go. I should not have let it go, but I did. Because she was my daughter, and I loved her, and I thought this was what children did when their parents got older. They worried. They hovered. It was annoying, but it was love. 2 weeks later, she asked if I had seen a doctor recently. Not my regular physician, Dr. First. Anaya, who I've been seeing for 15 years and trust completely, but a new doctor. A specialist. She said she had found someone wonderful, a geriatric assessment specialist over in Winston-Salem, and she had already looked into whether my Medicare would cover it. I said I was not interested in seeing a specialist I had not chosen myself. She did not push. She just nodded and changed the subject. But I noticed she had not written down the name of this specialist on the piece of paper she had already prepared, and she slipped it back into her purse without another word. I started paying attention after that. Over the following months, Diane's visits became more frequent. She started asking about my finances. Not in a direct way, never direct. It was always wrapped in concern. Did I have someone helping me review my accounts? Had I thought about whether my investment portfolio was structured in a way that would be easy to manage if I ever had a health event? Did I know how complicated probate could be for heirs when there wasn't a clear plan in place? She mentioned more than once that Ray worked with a financial advisor, a man named Curtis, who had helped several people in our situation. Our situation. As if my situation were a category. I am a woman who spent her career reading between the lines of bureaucratic language. I know a long game when I see one. What I did not yet understand was how far along the game already was. The moment that changed everything happened on a Saturday in October. Diane had brought the children over, which she did occasionally, and I was in the kitchen making hot cocoa when Oliver came and stood in the doorway. Just stood there watching me the way he always does. I said, "Sweetheart, come sit with me." He came and sat at the kitchen counter and we talked about school for a little while. He is in 7th grade, serious about science, wants to study environmental engineering someday. He told me about the project he had done on water filtration systems. I told him his great-grandfather would have loved hearing about that. Gerald's father was a civil engineer. Then Oliver got quiet. He was stirring his cocoa around with a spoon, not drinking it, and he said, "Grandma?" I said, "Yes, baby." He looked up at me. He said, "Mom and Dad have a binder." I kept my face very still. I said, "What kind of binder?" He said, "It has your name on the front. And papers about your house." He said it simply, without drama, the way children state facts that adults have complicated. And then he looked back down at his cocoa like he had said what he needed to say, and the rest was up to me. A binder. With my name on it. And papers about my house. I handed him a plate of the shortbread cookies he likes, and I said, "Thank you for telling me, sweetheart." And I meant it more than he will ever know until he is old enough for me to explain it to him fully. That night, after everyone had gone home, I sat at my kitchen table for a long time. I have a good friend. Her name is Patricia. We have known each other since our children were in elementary school together. And I called her. Patricia is a retired paralegal. She has a very good head for what things mean. I told her what Oliver had said. I told her about the past 18 months, the questions about my memory the specialist Diane had researched, the financial advisor named Curtis, all of it laid out in sequence. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You need to call your attorney before you talk to Diane about any of this." I have an attorney. His name is Garrett, and he handled Gerald's estate when he passed. I called him Monday morning. I want to tell you what Garrett explained to me, because I think this is the part that matters most if you are in a situation like mine, or if someone you love might be. He said that what I was describing sounded consistent with a pattern he had seen before, a pattern where a family member attempts to establish a narrative of cognitive decline in order to later pursue guardianship or conservatorship of an elderly parent. He said that the referral to an outside physician, one not chosen by me, was a significant detail. He said that if I had gone to that doctor, and if that doctor had documented any signs of cognitive slippage, even minor ones that could be attributed simply to age and grief, that documentation could later be used in a legal proceeding. I sat with that for a moment. Then I asked him what I should do. He said the first thing was to get my own independent cognitive evaluation to my own physician, documented and dated. The second thing was to make sure my estate documents were current and airtight. Gerald and I had a will, but it was old, and we had never set up a trust. Garrett said a revocable living trust, properly structured, would be much harder to challenge than a will alone. The third thing he said was this: do not confront Diane yet, not until the paperwork is in order. I did everything he told me. Over the following 6 weeks, I had a full evaluation through Dr. Anaya and a specialist she referred me to, a neurologist at the Wake Forest Medical Center. My cognitive function came back completely normal for my age, which I will admit I needed to hear even though I already knew it. I worked with Garrett to establish a revocable living trust. My HouseNet investment accounts, the small certificate of deposit I had maintained separately for years, all of it properly structured. I named Nathan as the successor trustee. I updated my healthcare directive and my durable power of attorney. I made sure that if anything ever happened to me, the decisions about my care and my assets would rest with someone who had never once asked me whether I was having trouble remembering where I put things. While all of this was happening, I continued behaving normally with Diane. She came over for Sunday dinners. I made her chicken salad. I asked about her children's school activities. I said nothing, but I listened to everything. One evening in November, she mentioned casually that Ray had been talking to Curtis again about long-term wealth management strategies. She said Curtis had mentioned that one option some people found useful was a family trust structure where a trusted family member could co-manage assets. She said it in the same airy, offhand way she mentioned most things. Just a thought, just something Curtis had brought up. I said, "That's interesting." And I passed her the rolls. What I did not tell her was that my trust had been finalized and recorded with the county 2 weeks earlier. The conversation I had with Diane, the real one, came in December, a few days before Christmas. Nathan happened to be in town visiting with his family, which was not a coincidence. I had asked him to be there. I had not told him everything, not yet, but I had told him enough that he drove 17 hours from Phoenix to be sitting in my living room when Diane arrived. She walked in and saw Nathan, and her face did something complicated, just for a moment. Then she recovered and smiled and said how wonderful it was that we were all together. I let her get her coat off. I let her sit down. I gave everyone coffee, and then I told her what I knew. I told her about Oliver's words to me in the kitchen. I told her about my conversation with Patricia and then with Garrett. I told her about the trust, the neurological evaluation, the updated power of attorney. I told her that if she had ever obtained a binder with papers about my house and my finances, those documents reflected a version of my estate that no longer existed. I told her that every asset I own is now protected in a way that does not require her participation, her approval, or her husband's financial advisor named Curtis. She cried. She said I had misunderstood. She said she was only trying to help. She said Ray had just been trying to make sure I was taken care of. I looked at my daughter, my youngest, whom I had nursed through ear infections and heartbreaks and a miscarriage she didn't tell anyone about for 3 months. And I said, "Diane, I want you to hear me clearly. I love you. I will always love you, but I am not confused. I am not declining, and I am not a problem that needs to be managed." Nathan said nothing. He did not need to. Diane left early that evening. We have not spoken in 2 months. I do not know yet what that silence means for us in the long run. I do not know if she is ashamed or angry or somewhere in between. What I know is that the silence does not frighten me the way I thought it would. I have my home. I have my health. I have Nathan, who calls me every Sunday without fail. I have Patricia, who came over the day after that December conversation and sat with me for 4 hours and told me I had done exactly right. I have Oliver, who is 12 years old and understood something that most adults spend their whole lives trying to understand, that sometimes love means saying the hard thing, even if you are not sure what happens next. He has no idea what he did for me that afternoon in my kitchen. He just knew that it mattered. And it did. It mattered more than I have words to say. If you are watching this today and you are in a situation that feels like mine, if someone around you has started questioning your memory or steering you toward professionals you didn't choose, or talking about your finances in ways that make you feel like a problem rather than a person, please hear me. Get your own attorney, get your own physician, build your own team, people who answer to you and only you. And do not wait until the paperwork is already on the table. Your home is yours. Your money is yours. Your mind is yours. Do not let anyone make you forget that. I would love to hear from you in the comments. Have you or someone you love ever been through something like this? And where are you watching from today? I am always so grateful you are here with me. I have thought about what happened to me, what almost happened to me, more times than I can count over these past few months. And the thing that stays with me, the thing I keep turning over in my mind late at night when the house is quiet and I can hear the clock in the hallway that Gerald wound every Sunday, is this: it was not a stranger who came for what I had built. It was someone I fed chicken salad to. Someone I rocked to sleep once, in a different house, in a different life, when she was small enough to fit in the crook of my arm. That is the part that takes the longest to make peace with. Not the binder. Not the financial advisor named Curtis who I will never meet and have no interest in meeting. Not even the questions about my memory, which I now understand were not concern but preparation. A paper trail being laid, one soft question at a time. The part that is hardest is the love that was real once, and that I do not know what to do with now. But here is what I have come to understand, sitting with all of it: the choices Diane made did not come from nowhere. People who move toward another person's life, their home, their savings, with that kind of patience and planning, they have usually convinced themselves they deserve it. That is not me guessing. That is me knowing my daughter. She has always believed that what was mine was, in some loose way, also hers. I do not think she sat down one day and decided to be the villain of this story. I think she slipped into it slowly, the way you can slip into almost anything when you stop paying attention to the difference between what you want and what is actually yours to take. And what she did not account for, what none of them account for in these situations, is that the person they are moving against is still thinking, still watching, still fully present in her own life. That is the thing I want to say most clearly to anyone watching this who is older, who has started to feel like the people around them see a problem where there's actually a person. Your clarity is not gone just because someone has started questioning it. Your judgment is not compromised just because someone has started suggesting that it might be. The very fact that something feels wrong, that you notice the folded hands, the prepared piece of paper, the too casual mention of a financial advisor, that noticing is your intelligence working exactly as it should. Oliver is 12. He did not have a legal strategy. He did not know what a revocable living trust was. He just knew that something he had seen did not sit right, and he said so to the one person he thought could do something about it. That is courage of the plainest kind, the kind that does not announce itself or ask for credit. He just walked into my kitchen and told me the truth because he thought I deserved to know it. I try to live like that. I try to be someone who tells the truth because the other person deserves it, not because it is convenient or safe or because the timing is right. Gerald lived that way. It is one of the things I love most about him. What I know now, on the other side of all of this, is that protecting yourself is not a cold thing. It is not a betrayal of love or family. Calling my attorney, building my trust, getting my evaluation documented, none of that was about punishing Diane. It was about making sure that my life, built over 68 years, remained in my own hands. That is not selfishness. That is the most basic responsibility a person has to themselves. Take care of what is yours. Tell the truth even when it costs you something. And pay attention to the quiet ones in the room. They are usually the ones who see everything.